Right, so now we're under the car. Let me show you what I've just done. We've greased up those studs that we put from above, just to make sure that these nuts are going to go on properly. It's important to grease up everything that you put on, simply because if you ever need to remove it later date, it's so much easier to remove. As you can see, I had greased up the previous bolts that I had fitted on this massive subframe that sits at the back somewhere there behind that light. And also I had greased literally anything and everything that I could get to. The bolts that go in this hole, the bolts that are hanging off there, they're all greased up. Everything is greased. Whenever I fit stuff back, I always grease them up, just to make sure that if you ever need to come back, you're not fighting. Whoop whoop. Alrighty, update time. Show you what I've done so far. Mind my finger. Right, so the subframe's now back in with those 4 nuts that we spoke about earlier. We showed you earlier, one there, one a bit further down, and the same on the other side. There's also a grommet just there in the middle. You've also got to put that in. I suppose it helps it to line up as good as possible, but the one on the other side is missing, the one on that side, so couldn't really put that in. Right, next I cleaned the steering rack, and it's now back in position. It has 4 14mm headed bolts here. These two are much longer than these two and these two, so 2 long ones here, 2 shorter ones, another 2 shorter ones. So you've got 6 in total that holds the actual steering rack in place. Now, next job to do is here. I'm going to put the steering knuckle, universal joint, put a little bit of grease on that, and I'm going to put it, well, it's actually behind there at the moment, but you can't see it, so when I go above, I'll show you properly. Right, let's crack on. Whoop whoop. Slight delay. Little bit of a boo-boo. So what I did is, by accident, when I say by accident, so to get this knuckle on here, you need to leave those bolts that are underneath on the steering rack all loose, only hand tight by like a thread or 2. In fact, I'll get it a bit more loose. Yeah, because if you don't, then you won't get it on. Just about getting it on now, but then I realised the steering locked it. So yeah, crack on. Boop, boop. That's why I make mistakes, so that you don't. I'll show you what I've done. So to line this up, or to put this even in the actual spindle, you have to make sure all these bolts that we used to fix the steering rack, all the 14mm headed ones, are all loose, including all 6 of them. Because if you don't, you'll never get it on. Wife shouting at the dog at the background. Right, so now I've got it on. There we are. It's exactly as it was previously. Bang on the money. And if it's out by a tooth or so, which I don't think it is, if it is, then I can also, if I have to, I can adjust it from the steering itself. So all we need to lock that in place is a bolt. There we go. Hold on 1 second. Oops. Excuse me, fingers. Alright, put a bit of grease on that. And I did actually put a bit of grease on the in this shot on the shaft to make sure that it goes in its place properly. So lovely, beautiful. I was going to say, well, that's a bit tight. Why is it so tight? That's strange. Alright, let me get a spanner. Alright, un momento. Alright, so I've got that on now. It's a 12mm headed bolt, that one. That's in. We've retightened all of the bolts for the steering rack, all 6 of them. Okay, now next job is to install these power steering lines, which are both going to go in these holes. 2 different size nuts, as far as I remember, 17 and a 14, which I have a 17 here. I just need a 14. Let's just leave the 17 here, and we have 14, and that's all we need for these 2. Leave them here for now, so don't go missing. Right, so let's bring those buggers back in play. And right, I'm gonna have to do this with 2 hands. Whoop whoop. Right, so we've just installed those pressure power steering line. They're now on. As I said before, 14mm pipe spanner, and also a 17mm pipe spanner. And as you can see, our power steering line is still tucked away from the engine, so that when it comes to installing this engine, we're not going to clash with anything. The exhaust pipe is still there, which is great. I might have to undo a bracket actually that's down there, simply because it'll give me a bit more flex as I'm installing it. And I'll also have to undo this so I can raise the gearbox about that much off the subframe, so that it allows for the engine mount studs to clear this and drop into the hole on both sides. That's the reason we do that. Now we are also going to grease up these dowels, that one and that one, to make sure they go in the hole properly. Okay, what's next? So next we are going to carry on with the bottom half. We are going to install the front control arm bolts on both sides. We are going to install the track rod end castle nuts and the split pins back in place, and a few other bits and bobs that's going to tie up the bottom end, and retightened the rear control arm bushes as well, because we did loosen them. One of them were removed, the other one we loosened. So once they're all on, then it's time to make sure that I've missed anything, because I don't want to go back and do anything else. Go over everything, talk everything up to specs. That will all be done off camera, because I can't film and tighten at the same time. It's quite a lot of bolts to tighten up. Right, and then last but not least, we are also going to install that U-frame subframe. That'll be the last bit to do, and then I'm going to call it a night, because I believe I haven't got my watch today actually. Hold on. Right, it's actually 9 o'clock at night. I do like the late ones, to be honest. I'm a night owl, definitely not an early bird. So I don't mind working through the night. Nothing unusual for me. I work nights generally anyway. So let's crack on. Whoop whoop. Alrighty, little update time and something to give you a heads up on as well. So let me spin you around. Right, see these big bushes on the control arms, and this bush here as well. Now, because these are under tension when the car is on the ground, you have to make sure that either you tighten them up when the car is on the actual floor, or you have to tension up the suspension, meaning you put a jack under this bolt here. Obviously you don't put it on the actual stud, you put a piece of wood just there so it's supported there, you're not damaging that thread. Jack it up as high as you can. Once it takes the weight of the actual vehicle, the jack, and it comes off the ramp, then you know it's got full tension. What that means is now you can tighten up this bolt, and you should be able to get this bolt in its hole, because at the moment it won't line up because it's got too much tension on it, because it's loose, as in it's not on the road, so they're the riding height. So you have to do this on both of the front lower control arms, otherwise, as you can see, won't line up with the hole. So that's the only way to get that bolt back in. Right, so that's that. Now I'm just going to put this on loosely. This is a nut and bolt that can stay as it is, and I'll do the other side. And also we have this little hold on, I'll show you in a sec. That's the level sensor. We also have to plug it in wherever this thing is. I think it's on the other side, the sensor of this. Yeah, it's up there somewhere. I'll plug that in a minute. And there's a nut that goes on the end of that little thing. That's it. Right, that nut, I believe, is here. I've just got it. Right. Right. Okay. It's so tiny, literally. There we go. Okay. So I should be able to tighten that. Right, I'll leave that loose for now. So that's that one. Next, I think I'm going to install the anti-roll bar itself here, and I'm going to leave everything loose as I'm installing all this, because some things you have to leave very loose to actually get them on. Things like anti-roll bar drop links that go into this hole, you have to leave them both loose on either side to be able to get it on properly, otherwise it won't line up. This stud here is for the anti-roll bar main D bushes. There's a bolt there and a nut there, and it's the same on the opposite side. And then the track bar ends have just been put in loosely again, so I'll tighten them up once I'm up off the ground. And there's a little frame that sits across this section here. It's like a triangle frame. It has nuts and bolts on this side, a couple of captive bolts here. In fact, on the old frame, one of the bolts had snapped, so I've got some loads of spare bolts. So I'm just going to get a spare bolt out of my spare stuff. Looks like this may need tightening as well, so I'll re-tighten that just to make sure it's all well. I'll go over this one as well just to make sure it's done properly. And I've got to tie this up. Yeah, we're getting there. We are getting there. Crack on. Whoop whoop. Never a dull moment, is there? Right, so something missing. Stud. So if you look on this side, you'll see the stud, and bolt goes on this one, nut goes on that one. Come back here. Yep, recessed bolt, excellent, right there. However, stud missing. I mean, I thought maybe it's fallen or something, but no. I don't know where the hell that's gone. Maybe it's inside the box. So great. So one other thing to pay attention to when you're fitting these brackets for the anti-roll bar debushes is they can only go one way when you put them in position. I'll show you what I mean. So if you look at it, it's got like an oval hole there and a round hole there, right? So let me just show you. If you were to put it the wrong way around, which would be this way around, you'll see the bracket doesn't actually go in its place. So which means the round bit has to be at the back. When you put it the right way around, it actually sits exactly as it should. So the bolt goes on the back in the perfectly round section. Oval bit goes on the stud, so you got a bit of adjustment. But you'll see on the bracket itself, you'll see the nut sort of dent, like how where it's made its housing. So it's exactly, it sits in this position like that. So just bear that in mind, really. Whoop whoop. Right, so give the last update of the night, and I'm calling it a night. Around 10 PM now. Right, so anti-roll bar is back in on one side because, as you know, stud missing on the other side, nut and bolt all in. That's in the hole, as you can see there. Where are we? There. I've not tightened out yet, just left it loose for now. That bracket for the headlight leveling sensor, that's also in, tightened. I haven't plugged the sensor in yet. As you know, we can't get those bolts in yet until we jack up the lower control arm basically into air. It's the only way we can do that. We have got this side in as well, front one, back one we're also leaving until we jack up the actual the lower control arm again. This one's already in, just needs tightening. The drop link itself, as you can see here, is missing a stud, so I'm going to have to just rip it off the old one. When I say rip it, lots of heat, put the nut on it, put a socket on it and bash it out basically that way, and then hopefully it will come out, and I should be able to. I left the nut up there just so it doesn't go missing there. Now we're almost there. I've put the track roll ends in loose, so they're all in there. Put this triangular sort of tray or part of the subframe. I think that's where the under tray bolts onto. So I know that one of the bolts had snapped, which is here. I didn't do that though. It was like that, so clearly it had snapped previously, but it's so easy for them to snap because they get rusty from above. If you don't penetrate them from above with penetration fluid, then yeah, of course it's going to snap. No surprise there. Benefit is that these ones here are not some bolts. These are all studs. Those 4, those 2 and the other 2. These are just captive bolts. So they're alright, no issues there. Right, what else do we have? We are pretty much wrapped up under here. Obviously we do have the U-frame to go back on this, which is sitting under there, under that big light, ready to go on. But I'm not going to put it on until I tighten up the anti-roll bar drop links and put the control arm on the tension, tighten up that one and the other one, and then I'll get the lower subframe in afterwards. So that's my plan of action for tomorrow, and also to sort out this stupid stud. Alright, that's the last update. So see you in the morning. Well, morning for me, a few seconds for you. Sweet. Whoop, whoop. Alrighty, so we carry on with the Subaru. So I'll show you what I've been doing. We have now got the this is the driver's side control arm jacked up on the jack. It's now slightly off the ramp, just off it, and that's giving us enough twist on this bush here to actually get our bolts back in, and they're now tightened up to spec very nicely. So now we're going to spin, turn around and do this side in a second. Do exactly the same thing. Put the jack underneath with a piece of wood round about here. We don't want to go on the nut. And we've got a massive bolt, which is this bugger, to go back in. And that's it. Let's get that one as well. And then we can tighten up both of these anti-roll by drop link bolts, or nuts I should say. This one's loose, that one's loose, and the other side is also loose, only at the top. So yeah, let's crack on. Whoop, whoop. If I show you how well it lines up once you jack it up like this. Look at this hole, clear as daylight. Might need to move a little bit over, which I can do with a pry bar, but other than that it should sit very beautifully. So yeah, lovely. Just thought I'd show you. Whoop whoop. Alrighty, so I'll show you a little mistake that I made, just so that you don't make the same mistake as me. Schoolboy error really. Right, so see, this is the anti-roll bar itself. Runs up and connects to the anti-roll bar drop link, which is here, little thing, and they link up there. However, me being silly, somehow I ended up with this section being all the way down here, and the connection between the drop link and the anti-roll bar being all the way down here. So I had to take these two nut and bolt off. I had to remove these two bolts for this bracketry in the middle, or those two nuts, these two bolts, the other two nuts, and the other two nuts and bolts. Pretty much, basically, I didn't have to remove all of it. I left all these in on the back end and just left them really loose. These two I did take off altogether, and then I had to remove this one bolt because we still have a stud missing here, which is my next job actually. I will be removing the old one from the old subframe and installing it on this new one hopefully. That's going to be my next job. So I'll find a nut for it, which is right here actually. Safe place. And I'll fit this onto the stud, heat it up really well, whack it out, and hopefully it should come out nice and easy. Because if you look in here, you'll see it's serrated. It's got like little lines, it's like splines. So that's where it's going to basically go into. And I'll have to loosen this, move the bracket slightly over that way, and it should slot into place. Fingers crossed. And I'm pretty much done down here, except for the U-frame that is sitting under the car. It's the only thing that's left to do under here, as far as the subframe job is concerned. After that, we got to refit the engine and reconnect everything else that is to do with the engine. So let's crack on. Whoop, whoop. Right, so let's show you how I removed this little stud. It's still very hot, so I don't really want to touch it, but you see just there, it's poked out of its place. So what I've done is put the nut on the stud. The other one is still on there, so I'll show you on this one. So put the nut back on, like so, sticking out about, I don't know, 10-15 mil from the bottom. And get it's a 12 size, so 12mm long socket. As you can see how much the nut is sticking out there, and put the socket over this and basically whack the socket from above. But I did heat it with matte gas, so I heated this bracket, and I also heated the stud, and it just poked straight out. Literally 2 taps with the hammer and it's out. Yeah, that's that bit. We will move on to the next bit and show you the rest. Whoop, whoop. Right, so let's quickly show you how I'm going to insert this stud back into its position. So it's now in the hole. Pushed it from up here, still hot from the heat, so I used a pair of long nose pliers, dropped it into the hole. It's obviously still a little bit proud at the top, so it hasn't sank in its plate properly. However, we can sort that out. Just 2 seconds. Right, so here we go. I'll put the nut onto the socket. There it is. And maybe I should have done this 2 hands. Hold on. Okay, so I've pushed the pair with a pair of pliers from above just to get the nut started. It's now started, and you'll see how this is going to now pull. And voila, that's it. It just pulls itself in, really. It's quite simple. And I've got to tighten up this other bolt as well on this side. That's it, done. Lots of agadugas, whatever you want to call it. And the only thing that's left to do is the big U frame. That's going to go back on. And then we're ready for the engine. Whoop, whoop. Moving on swiftly on. Just a quick update. The hell? Okay. I was going to spin you around and it did. Right, so these bolts are all the bolts for the U subframe. Now, I've had to clean every single one of them. They were extremely filthy and quite really rusty, really. It was much worse than what you see now. This is actually clean version. So there are 2 different types here, or 3 actually, I think. There's 2. Whereas if you count the little one, which is a 12, then it's 3. So you've got these 17 heads, you've got these 14 heads. Those 2 are 14s, and the rest of them are 17s. The 2 that were 19s, that were removed previously, are these ones, or were these ones. Actually, it might have been. Yeah, it was these ones. Yeah, what, the outer ones, not the inner ones. So they're already on anyway, and as far as I know, there's a hole in the subframe for that. You should just slide over it. Okay, we have our grease, Nutella, and we're gonna grease all this up, show it back in the oil. Job's good. And so that little bolt that you see there is for this hole somewhere here. I think it's that one there. And then the other end of the subframe, which you'll kind of see at the other end, right at the other end, is going to slot into this gap through here, and the same on that side. And if you remember from previously when we removed them, we left the bolts half in, so they've got like a fork kind of thing on the end of these on the ends over there. It's got like a fork where it's going to come in, go in here and go straight over the bolt, and then once these 2 are on, we'll simply lift it up and then put that bolt in, and it will just hold it in position. And then after that, it's a matter of just bolting all these bolts where they've got to go. You will see that there are a few different lengths. So you got hold on. So you've got this one and this one. There's a socket out there, I've just realised. bolt. Where are we? These two should be the same, but they're not. Someone cut this one down, not sure why. And then you'll see that these two are the same, and I think these are all the same. Yeah, so these four are the same, and then you've got these two, which are the 14s, are also the same. So if you group them up, then you'll figure out where they got to go. I already know, but if you're not sure, it might be worth doing a diagram if it's your first time, just so that you know where you took them out of. Because you can't put them straight back in the hole until you remove the subframe. So if you put them back in the hole, great. Yeah, you know, it just makes life easier. But it's your choice. So, whoop, whoop. Alrighty, so I'll show you what's what. Subframe, or the lower subframe, is now on what's called a U subframe. Hold up, just remove my earplugs. If you hear myself, kind of helps. Right, so we've got two 14mm headed bolts there, and one and there. Those are the two 14s. As we come down this side of the engine subframe, which is the cradle, there's one shorter 17mm headed bolt, and on this side of the subframe, which is the front end, you'll have two long bolts, and they're both 17s. They're both exactly the same size. Coming round, we have no more until we get to this little one, just a 12mm headed short little bolt. It's just as a to help you at the initial fitment. You should get it on those hooks further down. Now, these are again the two longer of the bolts, 17mm head. Sorry, whack the camera. There's another 17mm bolt, and this is one of the shorter ones compared to the other two that are over here. And then two more 14mm headed bolts there, and that's all the bolts for the lower subframe. For some strange reason, when I removed the original U subframe, when we replaced this a long time ago, this one here was part of the bolt. There was actually a hole there in the original one, so this one actually don't have the hole. So there's one hole there that has nothing in it. There should be a bolt, but there's no hole. So how are you going to fit the bolt? You either got to drill it out and fit it anyway, or just leave it as it is, which is not a big deal, clearly. Because on some cars, obviously, because this was second hand, just a good used one, and yeah, no hole. Very odd. Let me know in the comments if you know why that is. It's an interesting one, really. Maybe it's a different chassis, maybe it's for a wagon or something, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, just let us know what you think. Right, so we are now ready to go above and set up for the engine insertion. Right, sweet, let's roll. Whoop whoop.